All right, we're just about ready to get started. All right, we'll get underway because we have a lot of content to cover. Thank you everybody who's tuned in for today's meeting. This is the third community meeting presenting information about the Salem High School building project. It's an opportunity that we'll talk a little bit more about how we got to this point in a few slides, but it's something that's been in the works for a while here in Salem. And we're excited to be moving forward in this process now at what feels like an accelerated rate, but really there's still a long way to go on this journey. If we want to jump to the next slide, we can do a quick introduction of the team that's on this call. So in addition to myself, for those who don't know, my name is Dominic Pangallo. I'm the mayor, the chair of the school committee, and also serve on the school building committee for this project. We do have a building committee. As part of the process of doing a school building project in Massachusetts, we work with a state agency called the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or the MSBA. You'll be hearing a lot about the MSBA throughout tonight's presentation and over the duration of this project, because they provide a lot of the funding and also a lot of the rules that govern the construction of schools in the Commonwealth. So one of the rules is we have to appoint a building committee. We're fortunate in Salem to have a great group of people on this building committee, stakeholders from our educators, our students, our parents, architects and designers who, we're so fortunate, who are residents here who are volunteering to serve on this board, elected officials, city staff, people from the building trades. So it's really a very comprehensive group that's guiding this project. Our co-chairs are Nate Bryant, formerly from Salem State University and who previously served on the Salem School Committee, and Rick Jones, who is a very experienced architect in his own right and a public school parent as well. So we're incredibly fortunate to have them leading that committee. The OPM, which is the owner's project manager, is the company called Anser Advisory. This is a program that supports the owner's project manager, serves as the project manager, the agent, as it were, for the district and for the city during the process. And Anser is a team that we've worked with in Salem on the Forest River Park project. We've worked with them on, we're currently working with them on Old Town Hall and on a number of other projects. So they're well versed here in Salem. I also want to point out we do have Spanish interpretation available for folks who may be on the call that require it. There is an option to select under more to select interpretation, or to turn on captions if you like. And this meeting is being recorded and it will be shared on the building committee's website, on other social media channels, and to Salem Access TV, just to make sure everybody has opportunity to see this presentation as well. And then in addition to the OPM, we have our design team recently joined this project, Perkins and Will. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, but we're incredibly excited to have them with us. They are a globally renowned architectural and design firm. They have a major presence in Boston, and K through 12 education is a staple part of what they do. They have incredible experience here in the Commonwealth, and we're fortunate to have them as part of our team leading the design effort, which is really the critical point that we're at right now. So if you want to jump to the next.
I'm going.
The next slide, please. So this is the agenda. I won't go through it in great detail, but we have a number of things we're going to talk about: process and schedule. I mentioned the prior work that got us to this point. There's going to be some fun activities that we're going to ask for your direct feedback on during the meeting. And then we're also going to see some examples of future ready educational spaces from existing school projects that Perkins and Will hope will help inspire us to think about the spaces in the high school facility that we want for Salem. We'll talk a little bit about grade configurations. That's a topic of significance to this project. We are looking at both a 9 through 12 model, which we currently have, and a potential grade 7 through 12 model, which would be a change for the district, and the pros and cons to each of those approaches. And that's a decision that the school committee will ultimately have to make in the coming months. And then there'll be an opportunity to close out by thinking about design thinking and hearing directly from all of you who are joining us for this meeting about your feedback. And if you're watching this as a recording, you don't have the opportunity to provide feedback in real time, of course, but you can go to the school building committee's website and provide your feedback through the website and through the email and the contact information that's on there.
If you're call them now.
And so I will start by talking a little bit about the aspirations that are underpinning the foundation of this project and how we got here. I mentioned building on the prior work. one of the most important pieces of that prior work was a facility master plan that was created around 2021 that laid the foundation for this proposal to the MSBA to fund a high school building project. And Dr. Scheik's going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. We have a strong aspiration for a school that is safe, equitable, and inclusive for everybody that's engaging in that school. Safety is paramount for us, of course, as a Salem Public School parent myself. It's of critical importance to me, and I know it is to many in our community and to the students and the educators who are in those school every day. An equitable and inclusive space, because part of our district's strategic plan, our values right now is that we want to be a district that welcomes and supports every child. That's a place where they have a sense of belonging and they're included. A school space that fosters learning and academic achievement. Our recent MCAS and school accountability data for the Salem Public Schools is really strong. And we want to build on that by ensuring that our educational spaces are up to the standards for 21st century teaching. We don't really have that in our current school building, so we want to make sure that's prioritized in the next Salem High School. A model school for career and workforce education. We believe that there's a strong element of career technical education in our Salem High School currently, and we want to create the environment that can foster its growth. It's one of the reasons we're seeing an increase in enrollment in Salem Public Schools right now, and we want to make sure that the facilities are able to ensure that our students are getting the skills they need for a 21st century education, as a career path as well. So they're learning the skills they need to succeed when they go out into the workforce. Enhancing the school site, an asset for all members of the community. Our Salem High School is a place where we vote. It's where we gather for important celebrations, athletics events, arts programs. It's a place where we have community meetings and important discussions. And we see this site as a critical part of our community. In many places, the high school is the heart of your schools and the heart of your community. And we think that this space should be as well. The schools are inextricably tied to the reputation of the community. We're proud of what Salem Public Schools are doing right now, and we think they deserve the facilities that rise to the occasion for what we know they can be. Sustainability is a key part of what's one of our aspirations for this project. We have very strong climate goals as a community. We want to create a building that's net zero or even net positive. We want to have a facility that's going to be healthy for all the kids and for all the educators who are working in there. And we also want to have a place that operationally is going to be efficient. Right now, our current Salem High School building, the utility bill for that building is about 25% of all the utility bill costs for the city as a whole. It's just an energy hog. It's inefficient. And we believe that a newer building that's sustainable is not only better for the planet, it's better for the city's bottom line in the long run. And then lastly, we want a project that's going to effectively use all the financial resources available to us. I mentioned the MSBA. They're going to fund a portion of this project. We want to be strategic in making sure that we're maximizing the funding that we get back from the MSBA, and that we're also capturing other funding opportunities, whether it's other state or federal funding that might be available to us to minimize the amount that we ultimately have to pay for out of our regular capital budget. So those are the underpinnings of the aspirations for this project. I'm glad you've joined us for this conversation tonight, and I'm happy to turn it over now to the project team to lead you through the rest of the discussion.
Right. So this is Margaret Wood. I'm with Accenture. We're the owner's project manager for the project. This means that we're acting as consulting project managers, an extension of the city and the district. I'm going to talk a little bit about process and schedule to give some context. Next slide. So the mayor mentioned the MSBA and covered some of this slide. Couple of items that I will add here is that as part of the project, we will be determining what's the so-called total project cost. So when you hear us talking about the cost of the project, we're talking about the all-in cost of the project, that it will include funding for furniture, technology, equipment, everything that is needed to have a school up and running. The city is anticipating funding its share of the project, potentially through a debt exclusion. You may have heard this term. It's a pretty common way of funding a particular project because it's an increase in taxes for a limited time that is part of the vote. Next slide. The timeline for the project, this particular slide is focused on what we're doing right now, which is getting to a determination of what the best project is and what the cost of that project is. But it starts with what's this first icon here, the so-called preliminary design program. It's grounded, the project is grounded in the educational project program for the school. So there's a narrative program, a space summary, there is what I would call due diligence with the different design groups and engineering groups that they are with the architects team evaluating the building and the site, and then working with the building committee to identify options. And then once an option is selected, the third icon here is to develop the design in sufficient detail to be able to confirm cost for the project that will hold for the duration of the rest of the project. Next slide. So the mayor also touched on this. So with the funding from the Mass School Building Authority, there's a little bit of, I would say, three-dimensional chess going on here in the sense that the MSBA funding depends upon, and it's a really good policy, the evaluation of options for renovating the existing building, renovating and expanding, which it might mean, taking down part of the building and adding something new that's needed, or new construction. So we are required to look at all of those. In addition, as the mayor mentioned, we're going to also be looking at options for 9-12 or 7-12 enrollment, although again, as the mayor mentioned, the final decision on that grade configuration rests with the school committee. We're going to talk later in this presentation and give you an option to provide input on the 9-12 and 7-12 options, but just to frame this in the way the MSBA might frame it. So in the 9-12 option, the 7th and 8th graders would stay at the Collins Middle School, which is where they are now. The high school project overall would be smaller because the number of students was less. It would probably be a somewhat lower construction cost and project cost, and it would probably be a shorter construction period. That's just kind of data, not an opinion. If the district moved to a 7-12, the 7th and 8th graders would be at the high school, although they might be in their own designated wing or their own special space. There would be fewer transitions, and the 7th and 8th graders, essentially eliminating the transition from 6th grade to 7th grade, because you would go from 6th grade into the high school. You would eliminate the middle school step. It probably a bigger project because now we're talking about an estimated 1,500 students and probably a longer construction period. Next slide. And this is really just to give you a sense. These modules that are laid out here come from the MSBA, and I'm not going to go into great detail other than to say, hopefully you can see that we're kind of right at the beginning. What has been accomplished so far has been to pull the consultant team together. So the building committee has hired us as the OPM, has hired the design team of Perkins and Will, and the first step out of the gate is to do this set of community meetings, at which this one is the fourth. We're going to be finalizing that first bucket of work, the program and the due diligence, by the very beginning of March, and confirming the preferred option by May. So it's going to be a very busy time for the building committee and the project, and I hope that you will all follow along. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent to talk about how this project builds on the prior work that has been done in the district.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. Steve Zreik, the superintendent of schools. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I just want to share some information about the work that has been long in the doing for us as we have prepared for this building opportunity to prepare for this opportunity. Back in 21-22 school year, we facilitated a master plan, a facilities plan that looked at all the buildings in the Salem Public Schools. We have 9 buildings, and we engaged a consultant to help us look at the facilities, the quality of them, the status of each of them, and what the long-term viability was. We were informed that for us to present a strong presentation to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, that we should look at our entire portfolio. And I'm glad we did, because we do think it put us over the top in terms of finally being granted a new facility at Salem High School. And as part of that facilities plan, it's a long, extensive document, which you're welcome to read, and it's on our website. And they did look at different operational grade configuration scenarios, which you see in the screen in front of you. And they looked at, and they spoke to people about the current model that we had at the time, which was essentially what we have now, which was we had a K-8 school, we had a few elementaries, an early childhood center, a middle school, and a high school. They pressure tested this idea of all the schools going pre-K to 5, which is what we will have next year with Saltonstall no longer having a middle school next year. They discussed the possibility of all schools being pre-K to 8 or K to 8 schools, which is a model that has been employed in other districts. And then they looked at this model of having pre-K or K to 6 feeding elementary schools, then feeding into a middle high school. And there was a lot of discussion about that. You can see the pros and the cons. There's obviously financial implications for each of the different models. There are benefits from an educational and programming standpoint that were discussed. And there was a lot of really healthy dialogue about maybe that was a viable option for us at the time. That led us to apply. When we applied to the MSBA for a new facility, it led us to offer the possibility, and they granted us to study both a 7 to 12 and a 9 to 12 grade configuration. And that's the stage that we're in now, trying to make that decision. That will ultimately be the school committee's decision. And I want to point out that we are joined by Mary Manning, who is one of the school committee members here tonight. And this has been an ongoing discussion with the school committee over the last few months and years as we've been part of this process. Next slide, please. Just last spring, we did host a series of community forums just in around May or June at Saltonstall School. We did some online. We had about 200 community members participate, and we asked again about grade configurations. We asked about people's preferences for a middle school model or a high school model. We talked about the potential of an early childhood center. We asked folks about their experience with a K-8 school, about their experience at Saltonstall, and we wanted to hear what they thought about a 7 to 12 or 9 to 12 facility. And we had a lot of robust conversations. There was also discussion about our intra-district choice, the unique provision that allows families to choose multiple elementary schools in Salem, and there were much discussion about that practice, which has been longstanding in Salem. And the school committee collected all that information. So there's been a lot of discussion up until this point, and so that has prepared us for the moment that we're in now. Next slide. There have been, and I've heard this, again, we've been re-engaging with people in the last month or so about this. There is a lot of energy and interest in exploring this idea of a middle high school, 7 to 12. People have talked about you get one crack at the funding from the state, might as well try to help as many grades as possible and ensure that every 7th through 12th grader gets access to a new facility, a bigger facility, new art spaces, new CTE spaces, new band spaces, new sports spaces at the school. There would be some advantages in terms of programming and sharing spaces. There would be some resource, ability to do some resource consolidation. And it would, could simplify transportation for families. And, overall, the building size would be about 1,500 students, given our 7th to 12th grade, which is really not that big for a high school. Right now, Salem High School has 960 students. And then if you added the 2 middle school grades, you'd be up close to, 1,400, 1,500 students, which is not a significantly large building. But then at the same token, we also have heard concerns about separating middle and high school students. Some families, some staff don't want middle schoolers with high schoolers. They worry a lot about losing the identity of the middle school, especially because a high school is the sort of the flagship and can dominate in terms of the use of spaces. So there's that concern. There's the concern about, again, the different, keeping the age groups separate, and that they want to make sure that there's a unique middle school experience. So we've heard a lot of that, and I think that's being weighed. I know that's being weighed right now by our school committee as a decision looms about what to do. And we're very interested in what people have to say here tonight about this very question. Thank you, and I'll pass it back over to our designers.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce ourselves, the design team. My name is Brooke Trivis. I'm the K-12 practice leader and a managing principal in the Boston studio. And Patrick.
Hi, folks. Nice to meet you. I'm a design principal in the Boston studio.
Hola, me llamo Steven Messinger. Gracias por venir. My name is Steven Messinger. Thank you for coming to the conversation tonight.
Hi, my name is Nikki Liu, project designer at the Perkins and Will.
All right, so you heard a little bit from us, and now we really want to hear from you and want to hear about your greatest hopes for the Salem High School project. So if everybody takes their phone or computer, we're going to ask you to go to menti.com, MENTI.com. Some of you have done this a few times. And enter the code 81375202. And once you enter that code, you will be able to respond to this question. And you should be able to respond as many times as you would like. And you'll see the responses on the screen. So I know this is going to be the best group so far. You're going to give us the most responses. So make us proud. Everybody in? You able to get into the Menti? Give me a thumbs up.
The code is also located on the top of your screen, 81375202.
So we started using this Menti as a way to communicate when COVID started and everybody started going to online meetings, and it's a very effective way for you to type down anything you want. It'll come up on the screen as you're seeing here. You can type in as many items as you want, type it in, hit enter. It'll pop up on the screen and start to happen as it's doing now. And there's anything you want to say about your greatest hopes, this is a really good opportunity to communicate and to have your voice heard. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. So starting to come up here and populate. Queer and trans inclusive, that is a huge component, and we're really excited that you're saying that. We strive for that always, but we love that you're saying that and it's front and center. Multicultural, same thing. Our team was really impressed and excited when we walked in for the first building tour, right when we were looking at this project and saw the flags hanging in the high school. That is a really beautiful visual representation of the diversity of the city of Salem. We're really, really excited by that. A modern building with more opportunities, updated facilities for students, updated ventilation, safety, 100% on all of that. It's clearly a top priority when you're doing something like this project. That's a once in a generation sized project that we take into consideration all those factors, and we will definitely do that. Community building, that's obviously huge. We've said this before and we'll continue to say it to anyone who will listen. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, public building in your city. that it's not just for students or just for faculty and staff. It is for the larger community. It's a central hub. It's a key component of everything that you do as a city. And it's really, really important that this building outreaches and affects and addresses everyone in the community. So that's why one of the reasons we're hosting these meetings is to hear your voices. So thank you. Equitable learning environment, for sure. We talk about that all the time. We do that in as many ways as possible, and it could be anything from diverse learning environments to different sizes of classrooms to meeting the needs of your educational program. More collaboration among students, teachers, and administration. Again, great comment. Thank you. And I don't think anybody has the ability to go off mute and speak, but maybe they do. If there's anybody, I don't know if we're doing that.
They do
with this
have the
size.
ability. They do have the ability to do that.
Okay, so if anybody feels like you want to add on to any of these, we can certainly do that as well.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I can relate to the parking lot because you could never really find your way. So we do have traffic consultants. While we are representing Perkins and Will, we have about 20 consultants that help us design the project, including traffic and civil, et cetera, that will help untangle that parking lot.
Since she's given a shout for parking lot, I'm going to give a shout for bike access.
Yes.
I rode my bike to the first Salem Building Committee meeting a couple months ago that we were invited to, and it brought me great joy. So I hope that we can find a way to weave that, and we've talked about weaving that into the conversation. Vibrant and healthy for students, teachers, and staff, of course. Working theater. Lots of folks have been talking about the working theater or a working theater. We are definitely, that's high up on the list, and our last few schools have really done absolutely amazing theaters, and they're very proud of their theaters, and we just see Salem is the same way. We were doing existing conditions walks yesterday, and we could hear the music and the voices coming from the theater, and it's just, we know that everybody's really proud of that. Athletics fields on site, that's certainly a conversation that has come up a bunch in different ways. We know that is a big challenge for the city of Salem and a great opportunity on a project like this. Opportunities for new students to participate in all/most activities, regardless of when they arrive during the school year. That's really interesting. I don't know if the person who wrote that wants to add on to it in any way. Climate resiliency and energy efficiency are related, but we always try to strive to go above and beyond. And Patrick will talk about this in a few minutes, but it's all related. The way that the people experience the site, the space, the buildings, and the learning environment spills out into your life. And it's a really great opportunity when you do a project like this to re-envision and to collect feedback from the community about where your passion is. So of course we share that passion. Our last project, the high school, is aiming to be net positive, which I just saw somebody wrote net energy positive. It's aiming to be 16% net positive. So as was just mentioned, instead of this building taking 25% of the energy of the city of Salem, we hope that this building could give back 25% of the energy, or some other great number like that. Facility matches the enthusiasm and expectations of the Salem schools community. Brooke has said this already, and other folks have said it. The passion and the motivation of folks in this community is exceptional, and it's one of the reasons why we're really excited to work with Salem. And it has come up time and time again. I already told folks this earlier today. I bumped into a woman outside of the school last night who is 82 years old, retired, and came back to the city of Salem to work part-time with children with special needs. And she was so excited to talk about the school and what she's doing and what they're doing. It's just really, she was really proud, and that's fantastic. Not too fancy, because fancy doesn't always hold up. That's a great comment. Sometimes simple design with quality materials is best for longevity. We put that front and center in our design process. We talk about maintenance, about durability, about materials, what they are, about material health, about what happens when materials start to get worn down over time, and about how they hold up over time. So certainly that conversation will happen from the very beginning all the way through. Solar paneled carport like at Beverly High. So we just completed Stoneham High School. It opened up this fall, and the entire parking lot is covered in solar panels above the cars, which is part of our net positive strategy. So we're excited to do the same or better here. Support for teachers to thrive, lounges, tech, creative, comfortable. This is fantastic. Our team is really passionate about somebody said this earlier today, the folks who live in the building, because teachers really do put their whole heart into their work. And so, yes, it's for the students, but it's not just for the students. It needs to be for everyone. And the teachers really are the threads that combine the educational experience. And we do this in many different ways, and we'll certainly, as we move further into the project, into the design, make that a central focus. Family been through a K through 8 school. I'll admit I was sad to hear about having only one middle school. This sounds amazing, similar to Peabody school system. I like the idea. Thank you for that. Keeping school environment safe without policing the students. We really we hear you on that, and we will do that, and we'll do as much as we can through design, through visual connections, making people feel safe and comfortable, which helps make them be safe and comfortable. Full accessibility, 100%. It's a guarantee. Any project we touch, and certainly this project won't be any different than our previous ones. Accessibility top to bottom in every possible way, in every space. Design that inspires students, teachers, and all who interact with it. I think that's central to what we do. We don't consider a project a success unless it does that. And we craft the story and the idea for the project around what's important to the community and the city of Salem, and we'll drive that through the process, and folks will be involved in that. We call it a party, which is kind of like a party with an I instead of a Y at the end. It's the central tenant and kind of the driving force of a project, and we'll do that here for you. More than one gymnasium. One can be typical size, but smaller studio spaces would be amazing. Places for yoga, dance, sports teams to work on drills. It's a really, really interesting point. We know that you have an incredible gymnasium right now, and we certainly and ancillary spaces connected, and we certainly look to take advantage of that. I'm sensitive to time, but this is fantastic. This is, I would say, the best, most vibrant responses we've gotten. Low stimulation environments, less overwhelm. We definitely do that a lot on projects. And we do it through materials. We do it through lighting. There's lots of opportunity there. Outdoor space, campus feel, you'll see a little bit later. We'll talk a little bit about that. Great opportunity here in Salem. Stoneham High School is beautiful. I've actually had the opportunity to see it myself. So jealous as a parent of a senior. Oh, goodness. Stoneham High School is beautiful, and I'm not just saying that because I worked on it. We worked on it, but it really is, and we're going to do the same for you. I can promise you that. Spaces that promote a feeling of belonging. Again, we'll talk a little bit about this. Brooke will talk a little bit about this in a minute. But yes, 100%, and that's an extremely important, especially regardless of whether you end up with a 712 or 912 middle school, high school. It's really, really important, and we'll talk about it and bring it into the design process in every way, all the way through, even to simple things like how you experience the cafeteria or other spaces like that, which can be sensitive to students. Separate but attached middle school, high school, so they can share resources, have separate communities. Brooke's going to talk about that, and we're going to show you an example of that. What does that mean for you, and what did it mean on a previous project?
All right, I think we got a great summary here of ideas. And in the end, we talk about other projects, but this will be your project, and we'll craft your story and what's important to you in the program. And So we're going to look at just some pretty pictures, spaces that might inspire you. Just very quickly, we'll scroll through some. We're obviously very interested in the CTE spaces, making authentic spaces for learning and having the right equipment, making sure they're light and making sure that they're visible throughout. Looking at the shop spaces, but thinking about how does a classroom fit within it? Is it separate? Is it within it? Everybody has a different methodology for that, and we'll find what's best for Salem, and we'll use best practices. Looking at the culinary operations, where is it located? What's best? Is there a bakery that it's serving? Is it near the main kitchen? Is it connecting to the business school, the business program? Is it connecting to the arts? We can create an interdisciplinary environment with these programs, medical assisting, and provide opportunities for teachers to collaborate, for faculty to collaborate, to have lunch, a little respite, places to just go and take a break. And we'll work with the teachers to ensure that it reflects what they're looking for. But we look at a variety of seating, a variety of opportunities to be alone or to collaborate in that space. Extended learning environments, so environments that extend from the classroom out. And this project, they weren't sure they wanted this and they fought back through the whole design, but once it was built, they just love it, and it's being very heavily used. And there is, you can't see here, but a variety of furniture in this space. Neighborhoods, are there smaller learning communities surrounded by lockers and soft seating, tables, and where these spaces are quite visible from the classroom, so people don't have to worry about things happening in those spaces that shouldn't. So you can see there's a lot of visibility here to create that environment. Flexible classrooms, these are studios, these are project-based environments. None of the furniture is fixed. It can be moved around, and you can have a variety of activities in those spaces. And learning on display, making everything visible. The spaces that were once back of house are really now front of house, because we want to bring them and bring them into the academic environment, those CTE spaces, the collaboration spaces, and make it visible. Here's another example, and you can see the student art layered with the robotic arm. And I'm not saying this is going to happen at Salem, but I am saying that we can make all of this visible and really a dynamic environment for your students. And wraparound services, we don't forget the needs of the Salem community. So it could be clothing, food, healthcare services, laundry for students. So we do talk to you about this as we develop the program. And someone mentioned creating belonging and community, and that's really important to us. We will work with our branded environments team, where we work to hear Salem stories and bring those stories to the environment, both exterior and interior. And here are some examples of that. That's a really exciting part of the project. There's already been a lot said about 7 and 12 and 9 through 12, and we will take an opportunity to hear your voice in this. We know that there's quantitative, educational, economic, and facility impacts of a 9 through 12 or 7 through 12. And some of them were already stated today, so I'll go through this quickly. We worked with our campus strategy team, Brad Rogers, who went to the school committee retreat, because he created this dashboard, which shows different configurations and how the other schools are impacted by those different ways of configuring enrollment. So it will show what's the capacity of the other schools in the districts, what's the availability. So maybe you can bring some programs back into the district. And this goes through each grade level and talks about the capacity, which is that dotted line as you toggle through the different configurations. And this is really helpful when the school committee needs to make that decision on 7 through 12 or 9 through 12. So we've already talked a lot about the educational benefits. There's a continuity of education, increased opportunities for extracurricular activities, advanced academic courses for the 7th and 8th graders, ease of transitions. We know that it's difficult to go to different schools, and as you do, you can lose students. So this is understanding culture and keeping students engaged, and maybe having an adult follow that student from 7th grade to 12th grade. Shared resources. And then there, of course, are economic benefits to a 7 through 12. And the reason we're mentioning 7 through 12 is because you have a 9 through 12. So I think everybody's pretty familiar with the impacts both economically and educationally of a 9 through 12, but you'll have a chance to talk about that in a minute. There are cost efficiencies because of the shared resources. Maybe there'll be increased enrollments, shared transportation costs, and improved graduation rates. And wouldn't it be nice to keep every Salem student in the Salem public school system? So we did, as a team, we talked about, well, let's show a project example. And it's not that Belmont Middle High School is exactly like Salem. We know you're a much more diverse community. You're a very different community, but the architectural ideas that were embodied in this project can be thought of and discussed for this project as well. And the superintendent there talked about careful connections and thoughtful separations. And that really resonated with us throughout the project. Distinct front doors. So the middle school has its front door, and you can see on the right side of this diagram. So there was an administrative area there separate. There was a collaboration space, a place where kids could hang out, and I'll show you that in a minute. And the high school had their own front door and identity, and that allowed students to feel a sense of community and place as they entered this building. We also talked a lot about clear path of travel to shared resource. So we know some of these students will use, of course, the middle schoolers will use the gym, will use the auditorium, will use the black box and other shared elements, but we thought about how they move through the building. Where were the toilets going to be? Where were the stairs? How did they get there? And what created that sense of safety for those students and their parents as well? So here's some images of some of the things that you were talking about when we did the mentee and things that we've said centering students. This is the high school side. That's high school artwork on the right that was put into this space. The next slide shows the middle school. So they had their own cozy little area to hang out right by admin next to the art spaces. So that was right size for them. And we also knew when to create separate scaled spaces. So this is the media center for the middle school, and they had their own media center. They had their own area in the cafeteria and places that they could call their own. And that was really important to the community. And then what everyone's talking about, which is these wonderful shared resources that 7th and 8th graders can have an option to use, and maybe the plays. There's a musical for middle school, one, in the fall, high school in the spring, and it reverses and the black box is used. And I just like to point out that what you see on the top of the screen, that's making all of the back of house, the lighting designers and all the back of house perform students in the theater visible, not just the performers. And we're proud of that. And we find that to be a really nice feature in these auditoriums. So we're going to do this one last time because this is really important. And we're going to ask you what you see are the challenges and benefits of 7 through 12 or 9 through 12. And if you want to write challenge, you want to write benefits, sometimes it's clear, but please feel free to write those words and tell us what you think, because this is a very important topic and the decision will be made probably by the end of December. Is that right, Margaret? Maybe a little before.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
we're in December.
it's probably going to be early to mid-January, but the school committee is actively discussing it at this point.
So this is important for us to hear your thoughts on this. And we know it's come up a lot in a lot of your forums, but it's really important.
Okay, people, let's make it happen. This is your window to shine. The code is the same when you hit enter, or you go back to your cell phone or your computer. You should see this question. It works exactly the same as the last one. You can type in anything you want. As Brooke said, if you say challenge or C at the front, that would help. But on the other hand, we'll probably be able to figure it out when we see what you write. Challenges and benefits. And obviously we're discussing grade configuration. That's the big driver of this specific conversation.
And even if we've already said it, feel free to say it again if it resonated with you.
100%. Venga, animo. All right, here we go. Thank you, people. We're here, we're listening. This is one of many tools we're going to use over the course of this project to collect your ideas and thoughts and do whatever we can to make sure that you feel heard. And while we're waiting for people to start typing in, please share with your other friends, your other community members, people who might not have been able to attend this call. We know you're probably cooking dinner with one hand and dealing with the kids and the homework on the other hand, and on this call. So thank you for being here. Okay. Benefits, enhanced space resources, 100%. Definitely. That's it's a great opportunity to leverage. Challenge, keeping middle school and high school kids separate. Brooke just gave a recent example of that we worked on in Belmont, but certainly every project's different. In Stoneham, actually, which we just did, they separated out, they asked for a pre-K. There was a pre-K space, and the pre-K needed to be totally separate from the high school, obviously, but they leveraged the opportunity to use that as a teaching and learning resource so that there was access. So there's opportunities in both directions. The mentor programs, definitely. A lot of people have asked about this and talked about this. If it's done well, there's great opportunity to leverage the grade configuration and the proximity of the age groups. Economic savings, again, definitely. We talked about that in all of our meetings in one way or another. One of the points that was raised is if you do the 712, potentially it allows you to increase certain categories of program because you have more students, and there's a mathematical formula. So more students means more footprint. Benefit, getting a brand new middle school out of this effort feels like an incredible opportunity. Great point. Folks have talked about this conversation of, how many bites at the apple do you get, and just the process to be put onto the list and then get accepted through the MSBA is quite a challenge, as Salem knows as a community. So now you're on the list and you have this opportunity. So, the more you can get out of it, the better. People have said that. Challenge, adverse impacts of sixth graders who will lose a year of middle school experiences, sports, etc. will be stuck at 6 different elementary schools. Great point. Very interesting. I don't know if the person who wrote that wants to add on, but that's a really good point. So thank you for putting that on there. If 7 to 12, 2 gymnasiums are super important. Collins has a robust after-school and intramural programs. And if there's only one gym, the high school varsity sports teams would likely dominate the space. It's a really good point, and that has also been raised. We need to make sure if you do choose to go in this direction, that it has positive impacts and is not adversely impacting space utilization. Some of which can be done with programming, but to Brooke's point, it may be done through design and space allocation. So it's important that we keep that in mind. This one I can only partially see. Oh, over here. I'm personally inclined to a 712 configuration. I wonder how traffic to access the new building will be improved, since it is now very jammed in the mornings with SHS and HMLS. It's a really good question and comment and a challenge, frankly. One of the things we've talked about with our design team is mobility and site access. And we're talking with the landscape team, with the architecture team, with the traffic planner. What can we do to improve, as we're doing this project, improve mobility onto and through the site? And how would that work with a middle school, high school? And again, part of that is done with hours of operation and when the school day starts and stops and all those sorts of things. But we've also heard from people that parking is a big challenge, and that when you host large events, community events, that parking is a really big challenge. So access to and from the site, definitely critical. What else, people? Okay, here's a new one. Would elementary, so I already know this is not my wheelhouse. Would elementary schools be reconfigured to be K-12, or sorry, K-4, so 5th and 6th graders can be together? My 6th grader was more than ready to leave elementary school. It's a great comment. That's not really in my wheelhouse speak on, but
Superintendent, do you want to answer that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think
Ben?
that's a really good point. We've heard that concern about, 5th graders being ready to make the next step. That's come up in conversations for sure. I think that's a very viable concern, for sure. That by the time they get to 6th grade, or, by the time they get to 5th grade, I should say, they're ready to be more independent. And so it would delay that for kids. So yeah, I think that's an important consideration.
thank you for putting that on there. Another vote for 5, 6 together in elementary PK, K4. It's a great comment, noted.
Yeah, there are districts too that have, different, bands of schools, not typically city school districts, but, where you have kindergarten and 2nd grade together in a building, and then 3 to 5, 5 to, 5 to 6, some combination of that. That's also another, that's definitely something that could be discussed as well. If a decision is made to go 7 to 12, then there has to be discussions about what happens with 6th grade.
All right, I think we got some great responses, and we're seeing a lot of continuity between different sessions we're having. So great minds think alike. You're thinking like your peers in the other community meetings we've had. So we will document all of this, and if we can put something in the chat, we can put the town's website there, and there is an opportunity to send an email if you wanted to raise an issue or correspond with someone on the building committee. That can be done as well. So thank you for your feedback. That was great. And I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to go through some sustainability and design thinking.
Great, thanks, Brooke, and thank you so much for all that participation. It really gets our gears turning and preps us to start thinking for you as a design team. We're going to start off and talk a little bit about sustainability. We know it's really important to Salem as a community. It's really important to us as a design team, so we love that match. And just to kind of give you a sense of where we've been on the last 4 projects that we've worked on, we've been ratcheting down our kind of EUI, our energy use intensity, towards zero net energy on our recent schools. And it's really becoming business as usual for us. So as Stephen mentioned, we'll probably come back at some point to do a deeper dive case study for the community on what we did with the Stoneham High School. But that project is netting positive EUI of -9. So they're going to generate more energy on site year over year than they use, which is really fantastic for that community, especially for you communities that have really high electrical costs. So from a resilience point of view, it's also buffering the community against rising and changing electrical costs, which we know is an issue with AI. So many of these schools are using geo-exchange systems, VRF systems. These are systems that are hyper efficient and are no longer cutting edge. They're really systems that are becoming kind of the norm for new schools, which is fantastic. Next slide. So sustainability is for everyone. That's our mantra as a design team. We don't think sustainability should be a kind of luxury item. And that means we need to choose the strategies that are kind of low, no cost, or add to your budget over the life cycle of the kind of operation of the project. And you'll hear us talk about that throughout the design phases as we get into the decision-making process with your community. So that starts with no cost strategies. It means creating buildings that are efficient. Somebody in the kind of chat earlier said, build simple, build things that are durable. Really, that's how you make the most sustainable buildings that don't wear out, that you don't have to replace much on. That's how we lower the embodied carbon in buildings. And it's how we create no-cost strategies where we're just making good buildings, super insulating facades, not putting too many windows in the building, right-sizing things. These are the kind of foundation for good sustainable strategies. Next, we start to look at those kind of high performance systems. So radiant flooring where it's appropriate, using heat pumps, using geo-exchange systems where we're rejecting and borrowing energy from the temperature of the earth below the building. These are really important strategies to driving down the energy costs of the building and making a building that it has longevity, but is simple and efficient to maintain and operate. So only after we do those first two strategies do we start to think about renewables on the site. We don't want to make an inefficient building and then put a bunch of expensive PV on the roof or over parking to supply energy for it. We want to make the most efficient building we can, and only when that's done, think about on-site renewables. And that will be our strategy with Salem as well. And then lastly, to think about operations. A lot of what drives the energy use in a very efficient building are the user habits. What's plugged in, if every classroom ends up with a micro fridge in it by the end of year one, then we haven't done our job. So through the design process, we'll be helping to educate your students and your teachers and all the users of the building so that once the keys are turned over to the community, you're operating the building in a way that's efficient. And that's really another really important aspect of being energy efficient with your building. So throughout the process, you're going to see us kind of rolling up the statistics behind the design. So we're going to be doing energy modeling to estimate not just the energy use of the building over its life, but also the cost of that energy. And we're going to be estimating also the first cost of these performance systems so that you'll understand what the premiums are and then what the savings is. And this chart here is actually the chart that we produced for Stoneham as a community. And over the course of their building, they're going to see a net $20 million net present savings for going with these strategies. So when you're passing a debt override and you're bonding these buildings, it completely makes financial sense to make these sustainable decisions. And on Stoneham, this is another chart from their presentations. Ultimately, it was an 8-year payback. So very reasonable in terms of an investment as a community. And that's what we love is when we can find solutions where they are both sustainable, resilient, and also save you as taxpayers dollars. So next, we're going to show a video, just a little preface to this video. This is a video of early design ideas and some kind of exciting thinking that we produced for the interview when we were kind of interviewing with your community to be your designer. So a couple of caveats. This is design work that was done kind of in a bubble without your feedback, without your educators' feedback. And really, it's here to kind of whet your appetite and get your wheels turning to think about different ways that we can approach the site. And Margaret reminds us that these options were showing a 7 through 12 option just because it was the trickier one to solve on the site. And we wanted to try to test that out as we were doing some design thinking. So obviously that decision will be made by the school board with the community's input. But for these purposes, you're kind of seeing the scale of a 7 through 12 school. And we'll talk a little bit about what are some of the important things to think about as we design.
As you just saw, we had a great working session with the Salem team. Since I've been working in Salem for almost 15 years, with the Salem Hospital, Mass DOT, and many city projects, I have a lot of knowledge and insights to bring to the Salem High School project. There's a lot happening in this area of Salem. Let me mention 3 future planning ideas that will have a big impact on this site. Number 1, mobility enhancements at Highland Avenue as a multimodal traffic corridor with bicycles, pedestrians, and transit. Number 2, a new commuter rail station with a pedestrian bridge over the tracks that will connect neighborhoods. Number 3, the city's bicycle pedestrian master plan that has some exciting proposals that can be leveraged by the high school project. All of this will help to create safe mobility for all users, vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists.
We were excited to see that one of your specific project goals is to enhance the site as a community asset. Now, as Vinod just shared, we're scratching the surface of understanding the infrastructural connections that will dovetail with the new school project. But now we want to take a closer look at the connective tissue of your site at a more human scale. So understanding the existing conditions allows us to work with and not against nature. This will always result in a more sustainable, economic, and far more interesting final product. We want to orient the project to maximize the solar exposure for passive energy, natural daylighting, athletic fields, and landscape interventions. We also need to understand the site hydrology, where wetlands, shown here in blue, may be, or other resource areas that can inform our design opportunities. The site topography and all of your unique ledge conditions define distinct ecologies, and we can blend those within the design of the actual project. And your proximity to Highland Park provides such an exciting opportunity to have great access to passive recreation right next door, which complements the active recreation available with the athletic facilities. Now, understanding how these pieces fit together informs programming opportunities and allows the project to connect back to a greater community context. So we understand that this project, regardless if it's a renovation, an add reno, or new construction, is a significant investment for the city. So while we're inspired by the park-like quality of your campus, the site will require upgrades to provide safe, universal access and multimodal clarity for greater community use. Site improvements will be part of every single scheme, even if the project results in an existing building renovation with no change to the footprint. We'll work closely with you to ensure that circulation and site programming supports academic, athletic, and community goals.
We'll also work methodically with you to help you evaluate how to best reuse your existing structures. Your existing building has great bones and a lot to work with, but it also has some challenges, with multiple internal classroom spaces that are without daylight, long travel distances, and inefficient corridors. There's a tremendous opportunity to transform those internal spaces into learning environments that better integrate the student CTE community, making flexible clusters of project-based learning. This will merge your school's traditional academic paths with its amazing maker culture. We'll also work with you to evaluate the pros and cons, the operational and life cycle impacts of new construction options. For example, what if we co-author a prominent civic presence by building a new facility adjacent to Highland Avenue? And this could minimize the disruptions of phased renovation and project the school's vitality to the Salem community.
So this is maximizing the site potential by consolidating the building along Highland Ave and freeing up the square footage of the existing school. Programmatically, this move creates the most distinct separation between the high school and Horace Mann, while co-locating the open space at the playfields. The square footage of the high school could accommodate an athletic stadium, which would bring the energy of competition to the campus. So as Salem continues to grow, knowing that the site can support a stadium could allow you to consolidate city athletics here, freeing up the Bertram Field location for a future building. Or athletics could remain adjacent to the hospital, and the space found here on campus could be phased to expand within the campus.
Another option is to reuse your amazing gymnasium, but rethink the way the site is organized, prioritizing the student learning experience. To enable this, we would increase the density of learning environments in the existing school, and then we would build an addition that stitches CTE with vehicular access on one side, with classrooms that have generous access to the outdoors on the other. The result, a school with a dynamic Main Street, interweaving CTE and interdisciplinary learning, with a pedestrian-focused outdoor learning environment where safety and sustainability meet.
So the landscape worked surgically here, relocating the Horace Mann Field and constructing a new competition field punctuated by retaining the wild areas of ledge to create distinct natural buffers between Horace Mann and the high school. The layering of outdoor learning spaces feathers out from the building, weaving towards open green space and recreational fields that are part of the arrival sequence of the site. The project and site become interwoven, safe, and active by clearly integrating circulation and program within the broader context, allowing for greater community use.
This concludes our formal presentation, but we can take this opportunity to hear more of your thoughts, comments, ideas, whatever you want to bring forward. We are here to listen. There's no mentee here, just conversation. If anybody wants to unmute and say something.
Can you take the presentation down so we can see faces?
Sure.
Hands, hopefully.
Anybody want to provide some thoughts on what you saw tonight, what you heard, what you've been hearing? I know it's late and you're probably tired, so, but we're here to listen.
Okay, I'll go.
Thank
I
you.
think this sounds really exciting. I have a 5-year-old, so I'm not going to be at the high school anytime soon, but I'm excited that she's potentially going to go to this amazing space. I'm someone who feels very strongly that 7 and 8 needs to be separate. Sorry, I have her in front of a screen so I could listen to this, but I also am concerned. Like, I watched the committee of the whole meeting when they were discussing the salt install path forward and a lot of the inequities at the salt install middle school compared to Collins. And it just kind of reinforced for me that I'm very concerned about what happens to 6th graders and 5th graders if we do a 7 to 12. And I don't think it's just put 6th graders at the elementary schools, because all of those inequities that I thought the committee members discussed so thoughtfully that were experienced by Salt Install would just be replicated across 6 schools instead of just 1. So I think there should be a 5 to 6 school. That's my personal view on it, or at least a robust discussion about it.
Right, that's
Thank you.
really great. Thank you for your comments, and your daughter's very cute over there. Steve, you want to say something about that?
No, I appreciate that perspective. I don't know if Miss Manning wants to comment on that because she was part of those discussions. No, Mary, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm thinking more that this is the time for other folks to say what they're thinking. Although I couldn't agree more that that the 6th grade should not be they should be definitely a part of a middle school scene, and I wouldn't be opposed to 5th, but certainly 6th. 6th are ready to move on out. But that's as far as I'll go now.
Anybody else want to unmute and provide your thoughts?
Hi there. I'm also in the middle of bedtime things with a kiddo in the bath as I, try to tune in here. So sorry if they're screaming in the background.
Fine.
I'm overall really impressed with the thoroughness and the innovation and the like multicultural inclusiveness that's a part of this process. And it seems like a school that my young kids will be proud to go to in the future. And thanks for all of these community meetings to keep us along the line. I was also excited to see all the other, future projects in Salem to help connect and keep making this place a great place to live. So thanks for your dedication. One question that came up at the end, here's your towel, was just about Horace Mann and the importance of keeping that as an individual elementary school, as opposed to it being part of this campus in some way, whether it is like for higher grades or, you know, could whatever is at Horace Mann be moved to a different place. I don't know. I don't really have a well thought out idea around that, and you don't have to answer it now. But just knowing that there's another building close by, how could that be leveraged? Thanks.
Great point. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I mean, that is one of our better facilities. It's the newest facility in terms of the newest construction of our other elementary schools. And so there'll have to be a discussion about all our, you know, this is an opportunity to look at our entire portfolio and whether that will remain an elementary school or whether, well, but it is one of the better facilities that we have. It's also one of the bigger ones as well. So there's a lot to discuss, and there's sort of a ripple effect that comes from the decision that's being made now about 7 to 12 or 9 to 12. And so it's exciting, though. It's an exciting opportunity to try to improve the experience for kids and ensure that like we have long-term viability. Facilities do matter, and we want to make sure that we set ourselves up for not just for the next 10 years, but really the next 50 years here. So I think that's a point well taken. And this is just the beginning of a lot of discussions over the next, 3 to 5 years.
Anybody else? Those were 2 great comments. Very thoughtful. Anybody else want to provide their feedback?
I would just have one more comment, actually in response to the woman that just raised the issue of Horace Mann. Probably not a lot of people remember, but when the Bates School was being redone and addition added on, etc., and that was a K to 5. That whole school was moved into one corridor of the Salem High for a full year. And there was a lot of angst on, an elementary school being so close to high school kids, and there wasn't any problem. There were no issues. They're too far apart to be interested. The high school doesn't really want to spend much time hanging around with the second graders, although they were good to them and nice to them and mentored them and read to them, etc. But there was no problem with it being there. I would say I have concerns about the middle school being up at the site, but not so much as some people do about the behaviors. I think it's more about the integrity of the school and what the schools offer and the sharing of facilities. There'll be always some, there are some middle school students who want to gravitate towards some olders and some older kids who still don't have the confidence quite that they might, and so they gravitate a little bit toward the younger, but I don't see that as the prime concern. I think there are many other concerns that I have that would be more than that, but the Horace Mann or the elementary issue, where that is, or whether 5 to 6, I think those sort themselves out almost by the students in most cases.
Thank you, Mary.
So shitty.
I just want to also remind people that the building committee meetings are public meetings. There is another one. Is it next Thursday? I think or the Thursday after. I can't remember.
The 19th.
The 19th. Those are all public meetings, and folks are invited to attend. They're also recorded and they're available online. And there'll be other opportunities to engage down the road. And so, just stay tuned because this is a long process, but just remember that those monthly meetings are public and available for people to come. And, I don't want to speak for Mr. Bryant, who's the chair, but there is also opportunity normally for public comment if people are there and want to share their perspective.
And the meetings are recorded and posted, so if you can't make the meeting, but you want to listen in at a different time and then send feedback, please do so. And thank you to Chris O'Donnell, who's on the meeting, for posting those on the website.
You're welcome.
Oh, we.
I think we're all
Close
set. Yeah,
the
thank you
meeting.
very much for your time, everybody. We appreciate you giving up a little bit of your Thursday evening in December. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you all soon and enjoying a new building in 5 or 6 years. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.